This is part 2 of my orientation. I definitely need a cough drop. Now, moving along, I was deciding on which spiritual path to follow because I believed that there was a path, and I wanted to tie into the path of my ancestors. And so, the first book I read on paganism was Solitary Wicca, and that had to be a solitary Wiccan practitioner, and it was by one of the main people who was very well known for his use of herbs and whatnot. And that author of that book, and I had an affinity for plants. I loved being out in nature. I hiked. And I decided that I wanted to be a Druid because I felt that that was in line with Celtic belief, and my mom has red hair, and as far as I know, there's Irish or Scottish Celtic heritage in our line. And so I wanted to go out in nature and have a vision quest. Now, I was kicked out of the house for coming out of the broom closet, as they say. So originally at this time I believed myself to be straight, and I came out of the broom closet. I was kicked out of the house. I had to stay in a trailer through the middle of the winter in constant pain for about 6 months of the winter or more, until my parents let me back in. They said, oh well, and I had created my first sanctorium downstairs, which is basically a wizard workshop, and I believed myself to be a Druid, and I had candles, an altar, and a lot of the things that I had read in the Solitary Wicca book. And I had been using tarot and a few other things, but I was never using dark energy or what other people would be considered dark or coercive energy. I was much more interested in green magic and healing others and bringing light to others. So the whole idea that they thought they would have to cleanse the room of evil spirits was just far out. It had nothing to do with reality. So then I went and I finally let me back in the house, and I realized, I can't be open with my very conservative family about my religious views because they will not accept them, despite it saying within their creed that we will let men worship how, where, and what they may. They wanted to use that as a convenient thing, but not something that they wanted to apply to me, even though it was within the belief system. And Joseph Smith was very open-minded to a lot of innovative practices, and people view his Book of Mormon, a lot of them, as a work of historical fiction or a fiction where he took some facts, some from the Bible, and constructed this book. But that's not really something I want to discuss too much. I mean, Egyptologists have gone over the different things that were placed in his book and how he pulled from Freemasonry. But because that is all speculative, as we don't have Joseph Smith in front of us, I'll leave that up to you to decide what you feel about Mormonism, not what you're told, but what you research, and when you pray and you've discovered other faiths, what you feel. Because the whole thing that I look at it is when you're in any category and you don't know a lot about it, when you've never branched out into other categories, you really aren't qualified to make a decision on a religious path. I was thinking, I had a critical church meeting where everyone was getting on people for believing in relative truth instead of believing in something that was universal truth. And while I think there's some things that apply more universally, there's a lot of exceptions to every rule. Jesus Christ being one of them, and people who are bisexual or gay being another minority, and people who are pagan also in this day and age being more of a minority than in times past, in Roman times and prior. When you look at the world's history, you see that mysticism and spirituality, those wise ones and those practices permeated all of history, and basically up until modern times, they were the main type of belief system that was in existence. So I believe in relative truth. I believe in personal truth. I believe in what Martin Luther said, where you can have a direct connection with God, and that you don't need anyone to tell you what to believe. And I can give you my perspective. If something resonates with you, feel free to message me, to call me, to do a voice chat. as I will be setting up another coven soon. I think that it's important to find people with a similar belief in order to expand your own belief. Now, I spent a long time searching for a teacher and never found one. Somebody who could inform me. And finally I found YouTube, and there was, everyone has their own perspective on magic and paganism. And I thought, well, maybe my calling is to be the leader. And so I've been studying it for years now. And for years I've been investigating different books and different paths because I believe, and I've created a church, or you can say it's a church or a religious organization, and it's spiritual, where people can come and they can be themselves, be their own truth. Similar to Unitarian Universalism, but it's even broader than that. It's like Jeet Kune Do. And people want to know what I believe, and I say I believe in the truth behind all truths. And I call it T-BAT. And that just means that behind everything people say, every dogma, and everything else that's within the dogma, there's a vein of truth that gives it power that lies beneath it, kind of like water underneath. And you have to drill down in through the dogma, and then you get down into the center like a well, and you can bring up that elixir of life. And I think that the thing is that when you look for the truth behind all truths, you'll look at people's words differently. You'll be like, not what they're saying, but what is their intention? What are they trying to get across behind these words? And then you address that rather than addressing what their words are. Because words are inherently flawed. They aren't a pure speech. Despite what other people believe and say, and I don't want to offend anyone who believes in the Quran or anything like that, but I believe that words that we have, what runs deeper underneath all of that is what our feelings are. Almost when you give somebody a hug and you hold them or you do something and you can see in their eyes that they mean it, that can carry a lot more weight than somebody trying very hard to articulate what they feel. So I will use the words to the best of my ability, but please be patient with me, as I am on a path, and we are all on a path of progression. People are free to choose. They're free to change their mind. They're free to expand their horizons. Somebody's video that they made 2 or 3 years ago is not going to be the same as it is now. Somebody who made a video last week could change this week. You see, people have the ability to change, and you need to give yourself back that right. If you feel like you're trapped in something because of your family, because of the friends around you or your society, and it just doesn't resonate with you, get away from it. Get out of it. And if you can't do that, just use the minimal involvement you can so you can expand in the areas you truly believe in. The correct time to come out of the broom closet, in my personal opinion, and the correct time to come out at all, is when you are completely financially independent from other people. Because as long as you're independent, you're free to do what you want. As soon as you don't make money or you don't have a way to support yourself with your own income and your own means, you are innately giving your power to somebody else. And because they have strings over you, there are varying degrees with which they can make ultimatums, and those ultimatums could in fact disrupt your happiness and disrupt your religious progression. Now that can happen with the people you're dating too. Like, say you're pagan, and say your girlfriend or your boyfriend isn't pagan. Say you're dating somebody who's trans-identified and who's atheist. You're going to run across people who might tolerate it but not embrace it. I'd suggest when you're searching for a partner to find somebody who you can be handfasted to, who you can at least live with for about a year. At least that's what my belief is, although I haven't had that opportunity, so that you can see all sides of them and decide if you want to get married to that person or if you want to let them go amicably. And that's why pagan philosophy is very good. It's like, we are at an adult time in our lives, we're past 18, and we want to live together and see if this will work. And if it won't work, then we'll move on to our soulmate, or in some people's cases, soulmates, depending on if you're poly or not. Now, how can you be safe in a community that is very sexual in nature and primal? and I will include sexuality and paganism in my next video.